read something here quick from John Eldredge's book, Wild at Heart. It's part of the book where he's talking about posers. Now, at a boot camp, there would be a video session which would actually teach everybody what a poser is. And then a couple guys get up and talk about posers. And we don't have a video session here for everybody to watch. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what a poser is and why we pose. So here he writes, Adam knows now that he has blown it. And the Adam he's talking about is Adam of Genesis, or first father. That something has gone wrong within him, that he is no longer what he was meant to be. Adam doesn't just make a bad decision, he gives away something essential to his nature. He is marred now, his strength is fallen, and he knows it. Then what happens? Adam hides. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. So, because of his weakness, he hides. He covers himself with fig leaves. And that's basically what a poser is we create an image to cover up our nakedness, our weakness, as we perceive it. For myself, there's been, it's quite a journey that I've been over the past few years. And I'm still trying to figure out all the ways that I've been a poser. There's obvious ones, like when I was a teenager. You know, you meet some other guys and you start talking about fights you've been in and how, you know, you were so tough and how you're so cool and all that. Trying to create this image that you think that will make them like you. And then, you know, there's other times in life. I remember many times going into my church, and inside I'm feeling horrible, you know, going through a tough time, and yet, you know, I put a smile on my face and act like everything's fine, I'm okay. And you know, people ask you how you're doing. Oh yeah, I'm doing good, you know, everything's great. Meanwhile, inside I just want to crawl up and cry. So we put on these poses, and those are fairly minor ones. Other times, you know, things are a little bit more major when we have certain weaknesses or flaws that we feel. We kind of make ourselves look like a man by driving for success, you know, having all the girls, maybe through rock and roll, music, or sports. We look to make everybody think we're a man, even though inside we don't feel like it. Something else that John Eldredge had written was talking about himself. He says, I married my wife without ever resolving or knowing the deeper questions of my own soul. Suddenly, the day after our wedding, I am faced with the reality that I now have this woman as my constant companion, and I have no idea what it really means to love her, nor if I have whatever it is she needs from me. What if I offer her all I have as a man, and it's not enough? He goes on to say that that was a risk he wasn't willing to take, and he buried himself in his work. Every little boy has a question that he needs answered. Do I have what it takes? Am I a man? Kind of coming back to my own story, I remember as a teenager and a young adult contemplating, you know, marriage. It was something that I desperately wanted, someday to get married. But I always had this nagging fear that I wouldn't make a good husband. I felt that I would fail at it. Like John Eldridge, when I finally did get married, I hadn't resolved the issues within my own heart. And married life seemed to confirm my fear that I wasn't a good husband, and later even a good dad. See, I entered marriage, I came in as a pleaser, looking to make my wife happy. Without realizing it, essentially her happiness meant my validation as a man. And any man who has tried to make a woman happy probably knows how that went for me. The one statement that she would say often enough that was kind of what made me feel most emasculated was she would often say, "I just don't feel like I can trust you." And it wasn't that she was saying that she couldn't trust me in faithfulness to her, but in taking care of the day-to-day life issues of being a provider and a caregiver, following through on the things that I said I was going to do. So in the early years of my marriage, I often felt like this little boy pretending to be grown up. My failure was my shame. Shame is the enemy's tool to keep us isolated. Because if he can keep us isolated, he can keep us beaten. On the outside, people who looked at me, everything looked pretty good. We went to church as a family. We sat together. I had my boys in hockey, soccer, and baseball. Never missed a game or anything like that. So on the outside, I looked like I was a good husband, I was a good dad. But at home, I didn't really spend a whole lot of quality time with my boys. They'd ask me to do things, and I would be like, "Oh, I'm too tired," or "I'm too busy." And really, when it comes down to it, the too tired was, I was just too lazy. Because in that moment, I didn't really feel like doing it. And so I made excuses as to why, I wasn't going to go do the things that they were asking me to do with them. Too busy because, I was trying to do all these projects around the house with the intent of making my wife happy. Now, I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that my wife is one of those women that you just can't please her. But she was looking for me to be a man who was strong, who would be the rock that she could count on. But instead, I was more like a wave, tossed to and fro by her every whim, trying to make her happy so that I could be validated as a man by not being one. So there was a couple of lies during this time that I came to believe. One was that I would never change, I would never become better, I'd never improve. The other lie was that my wife and my sons would be better off without me. And I even prayed towards that end. But one day, God spoke into my heart and said, "No, your family is not better off without you. They're better off if you pull up your pants and start being the man that they need you to be, the man that I created you to be." It's not something that has changed overnight. I have grown a lot since then. But it's a journey that I've been on. And it's a worthwhile journey. And it's a journey that I have not traveled alone.